"It pinged us," Alex said. His voice was a light, almost sing-song that meant he thought they were screwed. Jim, sitting on the ops deck with a tactical map of Kronos system on the screen and his heart going double time, tried to disagree. "Just because he's knocking doesn't mean he knows who's home. Let's keep acting like what we're acting like." The Rocinante was acting like a small hull freighter, a class of ship thick on the ground in Kronos system. Naomi had tuned the Epstein to run just dirty enough to change their drive signature without generating too much extra waste heat. A set of extra plating welded to their hull at an underground shipyard in Hera's system had altered their silhouette. A slow dribble of liquid hydrogen was pumping out across the top of the ship and changing their thermal profile. When Naomi had gone over the plan to layer on camouflage, it had seemed comprehensive. It was only the threat of violence that made Jim feel exposed. The enemy frigate was called the Black Kite. Smaller than the Storm-class destroyers, it was still well-armed and had the self-healing outer hull that made Laconian ships hard to kill. It was part of a hunting group, scouring all the inhabited systems for Teresa Duarte, runaway daughter of High Consul Winston Duarte, heir apparent to his empire, and, for the time being, apprentice mechanic on the Rocinante. This wasn't the first time they'd seen it. "Any follow-up?" Jim asked. "Just the LADAR ping," Alex said. "Think I should warm up the pea shooter just in case?" "Yeah, let's do that," was on the edge of Jim's mind, when Naomi's voice answered instead. "No. There's some evidence that their next-generation sensor arrays can recognize railgun capacitors." "That feels unfair," Jim said. "What a crew does with its railgun capacitor in the privacy of its own ship shouldn't be anyone else's business." He could hear the smile in Naomi's voice. "While I agree in principle, let's keep the guns offline until we need them." "Copy that," Alex said. "Still no follow-up?" Jim asked, even though he had access to all the same logs Alex did. Alex checked anyway. "Comms are dark." Kronos wasn't quite a dead system, but it was close. The star there was large and fast-burning. There had been a habitable planet in the Goldilocks zone there at one point, at least enough that the protomolecule had been able to hijack the biomass needed to build a ring gate. But in the strange eon since the gate's formation and humanity's stumbling into the alien ruins, the Goldilocks zone had moved. The original life-bearing planet hadn't quite been engulfed by the star yet, but its oceans had been boiled to nothing, and its atmosphere stripped away. The only native life in Kronos was on the wet moon of an outlying gas giant, and that wasn't much more than viciously competing continent-sized sheets of slime mold. The human inhabitants of Kronos were around 10,000 miners on 732 active sites. Corporations, government-sponsored interest groups, independent rock-hoppers, and unholy legal hybrids of all three were stripping palladium out of a nicely rich scattering of asteroids and sending it out to anyone still building air recyclers or working on adjustment terraforming projects. Which was everyone.